Good morning, friends. Welcome to my ad hoc ranting, specific tirade, and gloating center, world center. So, you're not gonna get rid of me, so you can not watch my videos, but I'm gonna make them and send them your way. So, today is very simple. Those EU or Europeans, they have a problem understanding the situation. So, I have a point to make, a very important one. Comparison, like comparative history, if you will. I keep trying to sing the same song, but it seems to me like some, like some people in Western Europe still do not grasp what is going on. Remember, they rule Iran, the regime in Iran, and it's got satellites, right? And then the regime in Russia and in China, regime in China, this is the tripod of Israel, right? Okay. What I'm asking, what I'm trying to do here is this. I'm trying to bring to your attention the comparison between Iran and Russia and what's happening for a little while now, right? Iran's was on a specified task and mission. It's very, very well known, very well defined, very well studied, and that's to take over the Middle East, right? The Middle East, and then ultimately, not yet, until there is a total, apparently, for those strategists, until there is a comprehensive success in the Middle East, then they move into North Africa, right? Same thing for Russia. Russia was meant to take over Europe, right? And that operation began, that mission, that wave, that expedition began a year ago. Well, no, actually it began in 2014. However, things didn't go as planned in Syria because according, what happened in Syria was initiated by Israel so they can shore up the rule of Rabbi Bashar Assad, right? Or the donkey. But then suddenly the army defects, right? The army defects, and then things just are not as successful as they planned on, right? So and the regime was about 3 weeks away from being removed, right, by the people. Of course, Israel being very resourceful, they created ISIS, they created Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was there already. It was the instigator of all these things, right? These wars. And then they pulled in the West, right? They pulled in Russia. Russia had to basically cease operation, right? And they came to Syria, right? And they began, of course, to bunker buster hospitals and shelters and cities. And I mean, you know the story, right? That said, it began in 2014, right? And slowly but surely, they were going to take over the rest of Western Europe. And that's the history of the world as we know it, say in Europe and in the Middle East or in the Muslim world, was going to be transformed slowly but surely. The past will be completely wiped out, and then a new animal farm finally will be restored for Moses the Crow and his brother Yunus Jones. Anyways, that said, I want to remind you of something, and this is the important, very salient and exquisite point here. I'm going to expound on it. When Rabbi Ayatollah Khomeini came to power in Iran, right, first thing he did is neutralize or liquidate or eliminate the base that brought him into power. And these are, like the religious people and hey, we just whacked them. Within 1 year time, and probably too, he really neutralized all those people that carried or shouldered the revolution that brought him back in. And these are the two Iranians who were after, democratic rule and getting rid of tyranny, that of the Shah, and so on and so forth. But it took a little bit of a while to realize that what's going on. What they've done is really fall into a trap that they will never gonna emerge out of, right? Uh, uh, unless they're totally destroyed, and they know that, right? It happened in Syria, right? When these Syrian people were able to rid themselves of the regime, and the regime basically was just hanging by the thread, right? Breathing its last when Russia came in, and the gas, and Obama, ordered the use of gas, poison gas, and so on and so forth, right? Uh, so that's a precedence right there. And of course, in Russia, Russia is basically neutralized, like similar to a body that you take uh, its nervous system out by way of surgery, right? You just like similar to what weasels do when they kill other animals, right? They basically bite on their spine and then they just neutralize them, and that's that. That's what happened to Russia. But now remember, there was a failure in Syria, but there was a failure in Iran as well. And this is the salient point. Iran, after Rabbi Khomeini cleared out all these nationalists, all these democratic elements, and he instantly started a war with Iraq, right? And that war was supposed, and we know because as soon as he was in power in Iran, right, he declared that there is an export of he was going to export the revolution. And I remember very well, their caricatures and so on, like doing away with all those Arabs and, their religion and so on. I'm aware of that myself. Nobody told me about that when I was still back home in Syria back then. Now that said, the war, according to them, was supposed to be lightning, right? Fast, similar to what happened in Russia. They were expecting the war against Europe to be lightning fast, and then Europe would fall altogether in a matter of 6 months time, right? They had almost, by all calculations, intelligence and strategizing and thinking and they did not think they had done a lot of guesswork. They almost, those strategists in Israel and here and there, Zion, let's say Zion, guaranteed that Russia was going to take over Europe in 6 months to perhaps 1 year, right? If things just don't go right. But that didn't work, right? Same thing with Iran. When they invaded Iraq, the war continued. How long? Between 9 and 10 years. 9 years or 10 years, I remember. 10 years the killing was going on, those killing fields. Millions perished in those trench warfare and poison gas. Now, they accused Saddam Hussein of using poison gas. Yeah, he did, but he wasn't the first to use it. Iran used it as well. They all used it, right? And even against civilians. And that went 9 years. And I remember toward the end, I was here in the US. I was watching some kind of a program, maybe, I don't know, maybe Nightline or something. And then Henry Kissinger stated, he was being interviewed, he stated that they both are ready to stop the war, right? And then sure enough, I think about 3 months later, by the time he made that statement, until the time that war stopped, they met and arranged for ceasefire, and it harvested millions of lives, folks, civilians, military. You can go to those fields now and still dig up bodies of people. And then Rabbi Ayatollah Khomeini was sending millions of children, right? No, hundreds of thousands of children or teenagers. And he used to give them a key, a plastic key that's like, he called it the key of heavens, right? Not that he believes in heavens, like he believes in Goyim and shit like that, right? And then what he do is make these kids dash against the defenses of the Iraqis. Some of them, I had heard reports that some of them were not even armed. They would just dash, that whoever survived of them would make it to the Iraqi defenses and kill those Iraqis and take over the position, right? And hundreds of thousands of them basically died. It's mind-boggling what this little that dog from hell is capable of, and his kind. But then it took 9 years. Now you'd think it's over. Oh no, it wasn't over. The reason Kissinger and his school and his cabal decided to stop it because they knew Iran wasn't going to take over Iraq and the rest of the Middle East this way, right? This war wasn't going to do it. So they had to devise another way. Sure enough, right? Later, in 1991, what they've done is order their brothers in Kuwait, right? Which is used to be a city of Iraq. And what they started to do is harass and aggravate the Iraqis, right? How did they do that? They started drilling horizontally under Iraq for oil, right? There's like horizontal drilling. And the Iraqis tried to talk to them time and again. They would like badmouth them and oh man, I mean, it was like pretty problematic. It was pretty good trick, they were digging under Saddam, saying the little fuck, so I'm not defending the guy here. And once he called the ambassador, April Gasby, and asked her about the situation, she said, this is between you and them, that they have nothing to do with it, right? And he, sure enough, he advanced against Kuwait because at that point it was so atrocious and so problematic for the Iraqis that he resorted to such an act, invade Kuwait, which is a small city, was actually a city of Iraq. When the English came, they cut it out, right? Carved it out and gave it to their brothers, the Kuwaiti rabbis, right? As a, municipality of Israel. Satrapi. Satrapi, this is a Persian term of like a province that is ruled by the Shah or something of the sort. I don't know. Anyway, they were waiting on him, and the United States comes in, right? Of course, this is Israel. When I say United States, I'm really saying Israeli, right? And they came in, and guess what? They evicted him from Kuwait, and then the Shiites did like what's called an uprising in Iraq. Now here's something about the Shiites. The Shiites are minority in Iraq. Oh, no, they're minority. You can go fetch numbers from the UN all you want. They're fake. I know that. Some of the very famous known people stated the fact that Sunnis are majority in Iraq, right? You may say, well, not if you take the Kurds. Even if you take the Kurds, in Iraq, the population size was 6.5 million. 5 of them were Sunnis. Still are, right? Now, they were reduced by mass killing by Trump and Bush and Iran and so on and so forth, and the Shiites. So the Shiites did an uprising. Now, what happened is George H. Bush, basically they all surrendered, or they all acknowledged the fact that Saddam is gone, and now the Shiite uprising is going to take him down. They underestimated him. Now, that's what's his name? Schwarzkopf, the guy who apparently buried thousands of people alive, those Iraqi soldiers, right? What he did, he says, I remember, like they underestimated, or maybe George H. Bush said it, underestimated Saddam's brutality. There was no brutality against civilians. Believe me, anyone in rule with a majority and minority does that, they will do far worse than that. He didn't do that, right? No. Basically, he quelled the revolt, and it was, whatever was left of the Iraqi army and so on. And then when they were withdrawing from Kuwait, they were being killed in mass by Iranians and Shiites and so on. Those soldiers who were withdrawing, right? If you're Sunni, they killed you, right? Now, don't listen to all that historic lies about Arabs and Sunnis and Persians and so on. So basically, all these lies, historic lies, I read history in the West, and I read history of old and so on. Much of it is fabricated, folks. The history of Iraq and the Middle East is not what you've been taught or told it is, really. Completely not, right? So now, Israel was disappointed again because the regime survived, right? They tried again and again and again, it didn't work. So they had to prepare for removal of Saddam. United States now, and coalition that's France, England, China, the Arab regimes, Egypt, ruled by Israel, and you name it, Syria, everybody. I mean, the whole world just basically came and wanted to pluck that regime out. All right, and they invented this weapons of mass destruction. Now we all know it's a lie, right? So if weapons of mass destruction is a lie about Iraq, What else is a lie about Iraq? Guess what? It's the percentage of Sunnis and Shiites, right? It's the old history. If you think they lied about Iraq so much as to remove it and bring Iran to put it in power, what else they lied about, right? And then, it happened. So it took 23 years, right? I think so. 2003, 1991. Yeah, 1991 to 2000. No, it took since 1980, right? Since 1979, when Rabbi Ayatollah wanted to take over Iraq. And finally, the removal of the regime was achieved in 2003, right? So what? That's like 33 years. But then that didn't go well, because now there was an uprising, right? They call it ISIS and Qaeda. That's not true, of course, because the locals wanted to defend their cities, and they weren't going to accept, the rule of Iran to come in, right? And then finally now, although on the surface it appears to be stabilized, right? And then Iran is in charge, right? They move into Syria, they move into Yemen, they move into Libya, they move into Central African Republic, they move here and there, right? Right? Now, why am I saying all this? You think, you Dutch, you Germanic, you Swede, you Scandinavian, you French, you whoever you are, you think Russia being sent like into Europe, like Iran sent into the Middle East, they're going to accept their defeat? You, by procrastinating, you allowed your future to be bleak. Why? Even if, no matter what, even if there was negotiation and a ceasefire, that's temporary, because they will have now thought the first major offensive into Europe didn't work. So they're going to work out something else, similar to Iran, right? First 9 years, 10 years, and then afterwards, 1991 and then 2003. And it went on like what, the civil war and uprising went on for what, 13 years? And not even now, it's not good, right? So, and yet they have not given up on totally removing the Sunnis and Arabs from Iraq, right? And, so my question to you, Europeans, and now you know the brotherhood and similarity between the post-Stalinine or Putin and Ayatollahs, right? And you know the purpose, and you know the underlying, current, and you know the commonality and common control and common purpose and common strategy and whatever destiny, they call it whatever they want to, right? What do you think they're going to do? Even if they, even if you sign the ceasefire agreement with them, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to come back again, right? And next time, probably will be different. Next time, maybe United States will send its tanks and airplanes and fight on behalf of Russia if Trump comes to power, or somebody like him, right? And they have leverage here. Not 100%, but not the majority, no, but they do have leverage. Their leverage is good enough, right? Strong enough to prevent prosecution of Trump, even though he committed like intransigence against the law, like big time. Anyone else would have been put out for life, right? Remember the Aldrich Ames, and the spy scandals? They're in jail rotting, right? This guy exposed America and its secrets and its economy to Putin, right? And the Americans know that. But guess what? He's got enough base to protect him, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, folks, you Europeans, you really need to move on, move forward, fight against this. Had you intervened and put a stop to this and defeated Russia, they will think twice and 3 times before they even reconsider again. But what I'm trying to portray to you here and provide you with the fact that they will not give up. Those Putins, those Ayatollahs, those Netanyahus, right? They're not going to give up about taking over Europe and destroying it and changing it and removing it from history. You don't know those folks. Look what they've done in Syria. Those who done what they've done in Syria, they're the same. They will do much worse even to you, Germanics and Scandinavians and French and whoever it is. You thought after World War II that things have stabilized, and you're dreaming. You're like daydreaming. So long those people, the Putins and the Ayatollahs and their brothers, like Syria and Egypt and Chinese and Netanyahu. So long they're there, right, in power, oh, they're gonna come. You will always have to fight. You will always be target. You will always have to fight a war, and you will always have to do that. Period. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Just imagine what happened with Iran and Iraq and the Middle East, and how they first had a ceasefire after 9 years of war, trench warfare. They came back again in 1991. They think they made an error again. And then eventually in 2003, and even now, it's still problematic. Now, again, I'm going to repeat the same point. You may say, look, nations just like individuals, they eventually die, right? Okay, that's fine. Die, that's fine. You don't want your country, that's fine. But consider this: who are you bequeathing your generations to? Under what hegemony? Under what control? Under what supervision? Those post-Stalinians come to Europe for one thing: to re-establish Animal Farm, because according to them, that's we, us, the humans. That's where we belong. And similar to a rancher or a farmer rounding up its cattle from the wilderness, right? Have a nice day, my friends. And I really think you ought to consider history here, even in the last century, the very recent history. In the Middle East, Iran, like these two are very similar in purpose and behavior and strategy and destiny, and consider what's coming your way. Unless Europe participate in a war against Russia, right? Right now, you will have to fight later, period. Now you may say, oh, look, there's NATO, there's EU. These NATO and EU are cohorts with post-Stalinine, and when push comes to look, do you remember? Even the Pope blamed NATO. Even the Pope blamed NATO for causing this war. Do you remember that? I'm not making this up. How hypocrite he is? He changed stance or position, shifted like paradigm when Russia lost the war, right? That's how much of a hypocrite that big religious figure is, right? I'm sure, like, you're welcome to take my, whoever you are, my points, formulate them, make them available. It doesn't take a genius to really realize what's going on, and I just made that comparison between what happened between Iraq and Iran. And Iran, like being thrown at Iraq, and then it didn't work once, it didn't work twice, it didn't work 3 times, and now, even now, after it's supposedly being stabilized, you have no idea how evil and what terrible and horrific evil lurks in the brains and hearts of those people, the Putins and the Ayatollahs, and their club. Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. You have no idea how much they hate other people. Oh, you have no idea. I mean, the more I find out about it, I'm a little bit guarded, right? And I am a little bit, I hold off because I don't want to jump to conclusions. But evidence and history and so on, the more I scour history and delve into its pages and facts and so on, it's horror, folks. It's horror. It's really horror. You may think you're Masonic or Protestant, that like 666 world and so on. Oh, man. Yeah, no clue. Just go visit the Russian Revolution, right? That communist revolution over a century ago, and see what they've done to all your kind, right? Even the Orthodox church that is supposed to be like Gnostic or mysterious church, look what they've done to them. Ayatollah Khomeini, when he came back to Iran and murdered like within the first year, I don't know, like 250,000, including the top clerics of the Shiites who brought him into power. And they're like you, 666 and stuff like that. I swear to God, look what they've done to them, right? So you have no prerogative, you have no privilege. When post-Stalini makes it your country, Germanic, especially Germanics and Scandinavians, he's going to do a job on you, folks. He's going to do a job on you, Baltics too, and all these guys, like the Baltics and the even Eastern Europe, even Serbia, even the Balkans. He's going to do a job on you, folks. May or may not be all at one, one go. It may be staggered, maybe like, but ultimately they mean to arrive at their goal, right? And what is their goal is really a couple of generations from now, if they leave your people alone, if they leave some of your people, those generations will not know what's going on, what happened to their ancestors or their country and so on. That will be erased altogether, right? And not just that, they will start worshipping Stalin and his likes as their gods, their saviors, right? They saved them. And they will live like animals, and they will fight other people as innocent people, and they will be killed and get killed. That's it. Have a nice day, my friends. And I really think you ought to revisit that Iran history and see how it is Russia, I mean, Iran in the Middle East, and then Russia and Europe. They're they spring out from the same branch. I mean, they spring out from the same root. They bud out of the same root. They are joined at the hip and the brain and the heart. And have a nice day, my friends, and I hope you wake up.